to another Youth Football Scotland interview, and today it's a wee bit of a different one. I'm joined by David Baird, the creator of Scoreboard Soccer. Scoreboard Soccer introduces a fun and motivational activity into small-sided football matches, almost revitalising them and making them both more fun and more beneficial. Hi David, how are you doing today?
Yeah, good, John. Thanks. I'm very well, thanks.
I'm really keen just to get you talking, so could you start with just a description of what Scoreboard Soccer is, please?
Yeah, essentially it's just another version of small-sided games. It's something your listeners might listen to and think that they're just looking for some more content and some more tools to add to their coaching armoury. You know, I use Scoreboard Soccer a lot. We can go on and discuss exactly what it looks like and what age groups I utilise it with, but essentially it's just something I always have to add to small-sided games, game-related practices, condition games, phases of play, rondos, warm-ups, whatever I'm doing in coaching, but sometimes I find a space for Scoreboard Soccer. So as you said in your introduction there, which was pretty spot on, it's small-sided games, but I found sometimes there's some barriers to development if I just play small-sided games, which I still do, and there's still a place for just letting the players play. But sometimes I found, I'm sure a lot of your listeners will know what I mean when I say there's mixed ability levels that we're working with as coaches, that there's players who get the lion's share of the ball and a lot of touches, and there's players that sometimes we find hard to engage and just a games-based environment. So I can go into more detail soon, but essentially what I do is I add an activity that runs alongside the game. I kind of use that as a scoreboard, and I watch the game and I look for behaviours that I might encourage within the game. So if someone goes and takes a player on and I want to say, you know, well done, John, for taking a player on, come and try and get a point at the scoreboard, which might be a crossbar challenge or a beat the goalie. I can say from experience, John comes back onto the pitch, really engaged and working really hard to try and get another shot at the scoreboard a little bit later on.
Perfect. So how did you come up with this idea, and when did you come up with it and start implementing it?
Yeah, so I've used this for a while now. It was probably 4 or 5 years ago that I really engaged in this idea of a games-based approach and letting the game be a teacher in small-sided games, and my players really bought into that, and it was great. But when I was at the coalface and doing it, and I realised there were some players that I wasn't engaging, there were some players that weren't getting a touch, and there were some players that maybe weren't applying themselves to their full potential. That's when I started to play around with some of this kind of scoreboard ideas. Long before I was calling it Scoreboard Soccer, it was just something that I was doing for a long time. And then in March 2020, the world went a little bit crazy, and we all got put into lockdown, and I couldn't be out there coaching and doing what I love to do. So to keep myself sane, I started pulling the session plans together, giving it this fancy name of Scoreboard Soccer, and kept myself thinking about coaching and being actively involved by doing interviews such as this and sharing the idea to other coaches, and it's been really well received. So I've been doing it for a while now. Over time, I've probably put together a catalogue of 20, 30, maybe even 40 different scoreboards that I know work pretty well with the players I work with. But hopefully I can share with your listeners today where they can access my ideas and my scoreboards and ones that I know that work quite well. But also if they can just take away that concept to go and come up with some of their own scoreboards. So yeah, to answer your question, I've probably been doing it for 4 or 5 years now.
You mentioned there wanting to tell people where they can access it. Where is it able to be accessed? Where can people find out more about it and kind of see these plans, which I've looked through and are really, really well made?
Yeah, so I've got a PDF resource of Scoreboard Soccer games. I share a lot of content on social media, so I'm on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram because I like to share my ideas, but also take ideas from others, which is what coaching is all about. And I've also got an app as well, so app.scoreboardsoccer.com. You should be able to add the free app to your mobile device and go in there and take these Scoreboard Soccer games with you onto the pitch. There's loads of Scoreboard Soccer games on there. But there's also some content you might use for full session plans. So there's 1v1s, 2v2s, and 3v3s. So yeah, that's where you can access the content. And if I was to explain some of the scoreboards that you'll find on there. So initially, if we go back on that journey 4 or 5 years ago and where the concept really came from, I'm out there and I'm embracing a games-based approach, and I'm playing a game of 4v4 with some young players, and I'm realising that one player is just getting a lot of touches of the ball, just a bit more experienced, a bit more developed, maybe a little bit more talented, and I'm sure a lot of your listeners will relate to that. Now, that one player dribbles by everybody and scores. When the other team try and build out again, he or she can just win the ball and just go score again. Now, I would never coach that out of a player. If we have a young, talented player with a lot of dribbling potential, we need dribblers within the game. We name Messi, Ronaldo, Haaland, Mbappe, Maradona, Pele, George Best, Johan Cruyff, all the best players. a dribble. So I would never want to coach that out of that player. But I've got a duty of development to all the other players. So instead of coaching it out and saying you must play two-touch or you must pass the ball before you score, what I would say is to that player that dribbles by him, I say, John, fantastic, come over to the scoreboard and actually praise that behaviour. But it's a kind of smart way of getting John, the dribbler, off the pitch just momentarily to share the ball. So some of the scoreboards that we first started with were things like putting a ball on the cone and it's the first team to fill all their cones. Finding Nemo is really popular with the younger kids, where I put like a whole load of cones and I hide a 5p piece under one of them. And when they score, they get to come over and look under a cone. And if it's not there, they just launch that cone away. And the amount of cones gets smaller and smaller, and the excitement builds until someone finds the one with the 5p underneath it. So the scoreboards themselves can be a little bit crazy, daft, and not anything to do with football. But if that's what engages them in working hard within the game, then I'm happy to do it. So as I say, I'll just be watching the game, and if I've been working with Rebecca on her scanning, and she's scanning, I'll say, well done, Rebecca, come to the scoreboard. And she'll go back on the pitch, and she'll scan again because she wants to be praised, as all young players want. They want that recognition that they're doing something well, and all the other players will try and do it as well. So they might get to go to the scoreboard. So yeah, it's just about trying to praise the behaviours you want to see as a coach. And again, your listeners will know maybe their key values or their philosophy that they'd want to praise, or maybe it's something they've worked on throughout the session. So maybe they've been working on scanning and passing, and then they get into a scoreboard soccer game. And they say, right, guys, the scoreboard soccer today is I beat the goalie. What have you been working on? Your players will tell you scanning and passing. And you're saying, well, what am I going to praise within the game? Scanning and passing. So it's just to try and take what you've been working on into that games-based approach. And as I say, some of the scoreboards, Finding Nemo and Connect 4 and Snakes and Ladders, some of them are just a bit fun for the players to work hard to go over there. But some of them have got a bit of coaching in themselves. I do a lot of technical drills as scoreboards. So I've already mentioned beat the goalie, but I've got ones where you're trying to pass the ball into a corner of the net, or knock a ball off a cone, or do 3 keepy-ups for a goal before you get back on the pitch. And the throw-in challenge has proved really popular when I've shared that with other coaches, because a lot of coaches are telling me that the throw-in technique is something a lot of their players need to work on. So, for example, John, your team will be against my team. The scoreboard will be a throw-in challenge, so essentially trying to take a throw-in to bounce inside an area. And when someone scores a goal or does well, you're saying, well done, come to the scoreboard. And if they take a legal throw-in and they bounce in the box, if the scoreline in the game was 2-2, it's now 3-2 because they've passed the scoreboard challenge. However, if you as the coach can see that their feet are coming off the ground and the throw-in technique's not as strong as you would like it to be, you can be working with that player on a one-to-one basis, while 99% of your other players are benefiting from a games-based approach. So the scoreboards around 1v1 boxes and free kicks. And, as I say, I'll share all these with you. They're quite popular with coaches as well, because you get to work with the players at the scoreboard. And I'll tell you just one other one, just because we're talking about ability levels there. So that player who dribbles by everybody and scores, when I bring them over to do a beat the goalie one, or if I don't have a goalie and it's maybe targets, mini goals in the bottom of the goals, or jumpers for goalposts, they come over, I'll say, right, if you score, it's a bonus point for your team, but if you score, you keep shooting until you miss. So I'm not discouraging the development of that player by having them in a game and playing two-touch and they're not having a lot of fun and they're not getting challenged on their ability level. My talented young players over there just, banging in shots, just doing loads of shooting rehearsals, while everyone else is getting a few touches of the ball. And when he or she misses, they come back in. So hopefully that kind of paints a picture of what scoreboard soccer is. It's this really simple concept that, yes, we're doing a games-based approach, but we have this fun and motivational challenge at the side to try and encourage the players within it. And probably a key point, John, that I should mention, and this might just be a personal thing, but I'm sure a lot of the coaches will be the same. I'm not just praising passing, dribbling and shooting. I'm praising communication and teamwork and sportsmanship and resilience and all these things that sometimes we find hard to build into a session. The second I say, well done, Colin, that's great, you're using your voice and communicating, come and have a shot at the crossbar challenge. Before you know it, all my players are trying to communicate and trying to be rewarded, because the kind of line is, developing people through play and praise. They like to play and they like to get a well done when they've done something well.
Yeah, I think one of the things that really dawned on me when I was just reading about scoreboard soccer was, for example, just as you said there, it's not always like the things you would think of that are praised, because you said one of the examples was like respect, or if someone's good sportsmanship. I feel like going over to a scoreboard for a younger kid would be a lot better than just getting a wee clap and a wee well done in the middle of the game. And as you said, it makes them want to repeat, so I think it's very good. But I'm sure all the coaches listening will be eager to find out how's the feedback been so far and what kind of response have you seen?
The feedback's been really good. The response I've seen has been interesting, overly positive, but I can maybe share some learning I've had from people who have maybe taken an idea and maybe taken it in a different direction. But the response has been great because it's a very individualised programme. The things that you would praise John for are not the same things you'd praise David for, and the things you'd praise Rebecca for and Colin for. They're all different people and they're all different players. So you know the ones that you're not going to praise them unless they do something pretty impressive because you're trying to challenge that player. And you'll know the ones that you're just trying to get engaged and on the ball and working their hardest. It might even just be, young David's just not getting involved and he's actually just touching the ball and you're saying, right, come to the scoreboard, go, can you get on it again, kind of thing. So the response from coaches has been great because it tackles a lot of barriers. It's not a magic formula that fixes everything overnight, but it does help with player engagement. It helps working with different ability levels because you're praising them on their ability level. And probably the strongest thing that I preach to the coaches, again, this might just be me, but I would certainly embrace this, is if we praise the process, the outcome will get better. So, I mean, I guess the reason I first sat down and started to share Scoreboard Soccer is because I see how fun, engaged, and how the players are developing. That's why I want to share the idea. So this idea of, John sprints back 30 yards to make a tackle, but doesn't make the tackle, I'm still going to praise. I love the fact you're tracking back. Because if they understand that effort is what you value, effort's what they're going to keep giving you, and the outcomes will get better. So John will keep tracking back, and finally his tackling will get better. I've done it with players that just never pull the trigger. They just never have a shot, regardless of how close they are. And I've been working on them to shoot, and I use Scoreboard Soccer, and they shoot, regardless if they score or they miss. I'm still saying, right, I love that. Come over to the fun scoreboard. And they'll keep shooting, and with time, practice makes perfect, isn't it? So, no, the feedback's been good. A few coaches have went out and they've done it and they said, yeah, I love that, really good. And I did this scoreboard. They really liked it. They've came up with some great scoreboards that I've then stolen back off of them. I had a coach recently that was telling me he did a game called Skill of Fortune. So he kind of printed out a Wheel of Fortune board with a little thing that you spin round. So his players would come to the scoreboard, they would spin the wheel, and it was like it could land on, double step over, Cruyff turn, left foot pass, and whatever it landed on, they didn't actually get the point until they'd done that within the game. And I thought that's a great scoreboard for development and for fun. I'll steal that one. The best bit of feedback that I've had so far is there's a game where both teams need to compete to get 4 footballs on top of a cone. It's called 𝗏𝗏𝗏. And they can either put a ball on their cone or they can kick a ball off the other team's cone. And the scoreline was 3-3. And one of the teams scored and they went over, and instead of putting the winning ball on, they kicked the ball off the other team. And the coach said to the kid, why did you do that? And the kid said, we want the game to go on for longer. So that was the best feedback I've had from a young player. They actually avoided winning a game because they wanted to prolong the learning environment and the fun environment they were in. So I really, really liked that feedback. Also had feedback from a coach in the Philippines as well, who told me what he really likes about it is he thinks the coaches are so guilty of looking for when players are off it, but this catches them when they're on it. I think we're guilty as coaches. We'll stand and we'll watch a drill or a game or whatever and look for what are they not doing well, and what do we need to step in and coach at, and what, critical and give some feedback. But this is actually praising them for what they can do and working on their strengths a little bit. And he said a little bit tongue in cheek, if Messi grew up in a different country, he might not have made it because everyone would have been trying to get him to score with his right foot, to hit with his right foot. If you've got a player who can dribble by, drop the shoulder, great disguise, and is a good finisher, you might develop the weaknesses in some of the other content I spoke about earlier, but you might just use Scoreboard Soccer just to really, really zone in on what players are good at and try and develop some specialists in the game. Some players that are really good at long passing or really good at taking players on. So, no, the feedback's been fantastic. One of the key bits of feedback that the coaches like, just probably the last wee point I'll make on this segment is when you just play the game and you let the game be the teacher, and again, there's such a massive place for that, and I do it all the time. I don't want to feel obsolete as a coach. You know, I've coached for 16 years and I've invested a lot of time and money in my coaching badges, and I love the game, and the reason I'm a coach is because I want to share my knowledge. So if it's like, let the game be the teacher, just play the game, what am I supposed to do within there? And, you know, then anyone could do that kind of thing. I like the idea of coaching at the scoreboard, and I like the idea of coaching within Scoreboard Soccer. So if we're playing 4v4, John scores a goal and runs to the scoreboard, all of a sudden it's now 4v3. There's attacking overloads, there's counter-attacking, there's defending outnumbered. There's a group of 3 players trying to slow down 4 until their teammate makes a recovery run back from the scoreboard. So the scoreboard at the side of the pitch seems a bit crazy, but really it's just a player's out of position, and we need to slow down until he or she gets back from the scoreboard. So I use the environment to expose the players to those kind of situations, 4v3s, 5v3s, 3v2s, 1v2s, whatever it may be. I hope they'll work it out for themselves through trial and error. But if I recognise a common fault, I'll step in there and I'll say, right, hold it there, guys. That's 4 times now, 4 against 3. All 4 of you have gone forward. The team of 3 have won the ball, popped it into the player coming back from the scoreboard. What can we learn from that? Or will maybe one of us sits back and defends the counter-attack and gives a little bit of balance to the team? So that's the feedback I'm getting, John, and I'm really happy with the feedback, and I really appreciate being able to share it with more coaches, because anyone who wants the resource, I'm obviously more than happy to share.
Yeah, I think it's brilliant. You're clearly so passionate about it, and it sounds like something that you would have just loved to have as a younger footballer. But talking of younger footballer, what kind of age group do you think it works most effectively with?
Yeah, no, it's funny you say that, because a big part of the passion of why I became a coach in the first place was my experience was we'd run around the pitch for half the session, then we'd play 2-touch for the other half. And luckily we're getting far away from that now. I always wanted to dribble, I always wanted to take players on, and I never got the opportunity to do it. I'm not saying I was good at it, but that's why I was going to training, was to have fun and, you know, pretend to be one of the role models that I named earlier. So yeah, it is good fun, and I know I keep talking about younger players, but listen, I've played scoreboard soccer games and I'm as competitive as anyone, and they're good fun. So I really engage with them. I would say predominantly they're for the younger age groups, probably somewhere between, and I know every player's different, but 8 to maybe 14, around that kind of age group. I kind of see coaching as a bit of a journey. Do we need to develop a love for football? And they're the really young ones. You know, they're the ones that it might actually be using your hands and hand-eye coordination and games of tig-tag, and you're not even talking about football, you're talking about spaceships and cars and cowboys and all this kind of stuff. So they're probably a little bit too young for it. Anyone who's listening that works with the 3, 4, 5 and 6-year-olds, I'm saying, whenever they hit an age where they can play a small-sided game of football, it's probably where you can start to introduce a bit of scoreboard soccer. So yeah, I've used it from 8, 9, all the way up. Just when you get a little bit older, your scoreboards maybe become a little bit more serious, and you're not referencing scoreboard soccer. So I work with an under-20s team as well. And we'll play scoreboard soccer because small-sided games are great for fitness and great for touches and great for this kind of stuff. But our scoreboard might be a line of mannequins, a goalie in the goal, and you're working on your free kicks, if that kind of makes sense. So with the older ones, the scoreboard I've done, I've taken my corner kick taker, I've put the corner kick taker at the corner flag with a bag of footballs. We are playing a 5-a-side game at the halfway line, and whoever's going to the scoreboard, it's a cross in, and if you finish it, that's a point. So my corner kick taker is just standing there whipping in crosses the whole time. But I certainly wouldn't use scoreboard soccer too often with older players. It really is for that. If you're taking an under-12 boys or girls team, they'll probably love a bit of scoreboard soccer. Particularly coming out the back of a national lockdown, I think embracing letting them play football, but making them feel good about football. Some of them will be apprehensive about, they've not touched the ball, they've hardly played, they've not seen their friends, they don't want to mess up, social situations they've not been used to for a year. So a game of football where you can let them play football, but make them feel 100 feet tall, might just be what a lot of players need right now. You might want players stepping in the car with mum and dad after training, just saying, coach said that I passed the ball really well, so I got to go and do the crossbar challenge, and whatever it may be. But no, to go back to your question, if I had to put an age on it, despite everyone being different, I'd say probably 8 to 14, 8 to 15.
Yeah. So what's in the future for you in scoreboard soccer? Is it just to keep thinking of it, keep changing it up a wee bit, and thinking of new, more fun, more ideas, or do you have a set plan for what you're going to do next?
Yeah, no, it's probably just I don't think there's too much more to come, to be honest. I've got the PDF resource, I've got the app that I'll keep adding you know, every time I get myself on the grass and I try a scoreboard soccer game and it works well, I'll put it on the app to share that to other people. And I use social media for people to share their ideas with me as well. So I'll probably just keep doing things like this as well, and just try and spread the word and keep getting feedback as well. A bit of feedback I had recently was a really nice email from a field hockey coach, and saying how much it translates to some of the work they do. Handball coaches as well, and other sports. PE teachers saying they really enjoy the resource, because if you're a primary school PE teacher, you're maybe actually a classroom teacher that's taking PE. So this idea of just letting them play football, if you let them do that, there might be, you know, your big characters and your ones that aren't touching the ball and a little bit of, you know, messing around. But the PE teachers in particular have been telling me this is really good because they play football, but I'm looking for those transferable skills out with football. I'm looking for the communication and the teamwork and the concentration, etc., etc. So yeah, not too sure where it will take me next, but just really excited about getting the idea out there, and really loving the feedback so far. It's been great.
You've referenced your social medias a few times, and I know they'll probably be linked when this goes out, but do you want to just like mention your name on the social medias? Is it just David Baird?
Yeah, it's at Coach David Baird. So Coach David Baird on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And yeah, I mean, my passion is sharing ideas and coaching. So I'll plan a session. I'm quite old school in regards to pen and paper. I'll plan a scoreboard, or I'll plan a session plan. I'll then deliver it, and if it worked pretty well, I'll then kind of animate it and make it look a bit fancier and stick it on social media. So anyone who is looking for some ideas, or share some ideas, or, you know, it might be you're interested in scoreboard soccer, or it might be you're interested in other things, because I've got other resources as well. So yeah, you can just get me on Coach David Baird on social media.
Do you want to just mention any of the other resources you have while you're here?
Yeah, absolutely. I've got one called Practice Through Play, which is just a load of you know, practices and games and small-sided games. It's not scoreboard soccer. It's just other ones that I've used. They're not necessarily all my ideas, as coaches will appreciate. It's just ones that I've taken from places along the line, and that one has about 120 drills in it. So if anyone's just looking for a PDF for our drills, I'll send you Practice Through Play. I've got another one called Future at Their Feet, which again is aimed at kind of younger ones, and it's more technical repetition. And I've got one that I'm working on at the moment called Practice by Numbers, because one of the things I've realised that helps me as a coach is you never know how many numbers are coming to your session. You can kind of plan for 10, but then 11 can show up. So that's one I've been putting together for my own use. I've been putting together a resource of sessions for, here's sessions at work if 8 players show up, here's for 9, here's for 10, here's 11, here's 12. So they're all my session plans I've used. So I planned for 15. I've now got 10. I'll have a wee look at that resource. But I've now kind of pulled it all together, and I'm almost ready to share that one as well. So yeah, if you just follow me on social media, I'm happy to share all these resources, of course.
Brilliant, thank you very much. I'll pretty much just wrap that up there. You've been brilliant to talk to, and I'm sure everyone will take loads from this, and I think we'll be seeing a lot more scoreboard soccer and sessions across the country. Thank you very much.
Yeah, John, thanks for having me. Cheers.
See you later.